Hello, my name is Nicholl, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today, I title this message, Competitive Midlife Men, Competitive Midlife Men. And this particular audio is an observation of some patterns that I've seen with competitive midlife men. We're not talking about stable, healthy, grown-up, mature men. Okay? We're talking about competitive midlife men who have their share of insecurities. They're getting older. They're not digesting it well. They've got their share of dramas that they are dealing with, whether it's with a wife and children or it's some past issues that have resurfaced. These are men that are troubled in spirit. Some of them are troubled in mind. And many are in denial that they are going through any type of midlife crisis. Now, I'm cautioning some young women as well as women in midlife as well, because I don't want them to end up being in a snare with these competitive midlife men. Because the snare shows up when you find out that he was never into you and he had preferred to be with a younger woman. The snare happens when you find out you're caught up in this competitive atmosphere where the older man is bad-mouthing the young men because he wants attention. He's a gossip of sorts, telling you things about what the younger men are up to. I saw this firsthand, okay? And I have seen this repeatedly in the way some of these men dress, in the way they talk, even in the way they walk, trying to appear as if they still got it, whatever got it is to them, okay? One particular situation involved a 20-something-year-old. She was in the office. There was a 30-something that she reported to. The man in his late 40s, who was in a different department, suddenly found his way over to the office where the 20-something-year-old was, as well as myself and other women. He made himself available if you need anything and all of that. We hardly saw this man up until the 20-something-year-old showed up. Okay? And so what he didn't know was that the 20-something and the 30-something had a mutual friend that they got along with. And what he didn't know was that the 30-something really, really despised him. Okay? So as time went on, there was this competitive spirit that grew between the 30-something and the 40-something men. And there was always something that was negative between them, whether he wanted some help, the 30-something-year-old, or he wanted some approval, the 40-something-year-old started coming up with all sorts of reasons as to why he couldn't do this or help him with that. Slow process and on and on. Quite naturally, a 20-something-year-old is going to tend to have something more in common with a 30-something-year-old. Okay. Youth is one factor, college educated, has the mutual friends. So quite naturally, the loyalty and just the mere attraction is going to be toward the 30-something-year-old. It doesn't have to be sexual, just simply, I can relate, right? Well, I saw this story unfold right before my eyes, and I knew it was only going to get worse, and that in time, the 40-something-year-old was going to figure out a way to look a little closer, scrutinize a little bit, and if you're the type of person who you're not on point, like the 30-something-year-old was at times, you're going to fall into a snare. And that's what the 40-something-year-old was hoping. Interesting how things play out when you've got this competitive atmosphere where there's a woman who is in between and other women, as well as just simply alpha male trying to maintain his position. Okay. I saw this sort of thing play out with individuals who I was working with. I was the only woman, and all of them had this spirit about them where this one had to show how intelligent he was more so than the other guys. So he'll say his little share of little comments about the other guys. One, he felt like he was more attractive than the other guys, so he didn't mind having his little negative comments about what the other guys looked like. The other was the owner, who was in a powerful position and didn't feel like exercising his power in front of me to show everybody who's boss. And then the other, who was younger, that individual, he was a free spirit and didn't mind using his sense of humor at times to make me laugh. Now, I'm telling you, to be in an atmosphere like that can be nerve-wracking. Some of you all know what I'm talking about. And when you know that a lot of it has to do with sensuality, people trying to basically get in your panties, okay, you will at times be a bit snarky, okay? You might end up having to put some people in check, as we like to say in the street. And then eventually somebody's feelings are going to get hurt, and that gossip of the group just might go and tell everybody else, you are such a you-know-what, okay? But for whatever reason, there's the competitive spirit that rises up in these individuals. And when the competitive spirit rises up, there is drama sure to follow. If I was that type of individual, luckily, or I was blessed back then to be married, if I wasn't and I was weak and desperate and got involved with one of those guys and that relationship didn't take off, or there was some distraction, or the other guys were trying to come up with something to try to keep the relationship from flourishing, the office would have been filled with all sorts of issues, right? And things wouldn't have run so smoothly. If you're in an atmosphere like that, you've got to be the level-headed one. You've got to make sure that you establish boundaries and that there is no dating the co-workers, you see. There was another competitive atmosphere that I was in, and it was a family gathering many years ago. And I was young observing this, very young. I was still in high school, and I saw how when the new woman of the family showed up, who was unattached, the men start with their little comments, their flattering statements, and going to get the woman something and, bring it to the table and get a little close. And then when one would go to the bathroom or step away, now here comes the other one talking. And, the negative stuff starts to float when the one who really wants to be with that woman feels like there's the dogs coming in on his territory. Okay. So now there's the little too many drinks. There's the arguing. There's the attitude. And the next thing you know, you got brothers or uncles, cousins, whoever fighting each other. Okay. And they may say, well, it's about this issue. It was about the sport. But meanwhile, the attitude was already growing within when an individual saw that the dog was coming into his territory. So you call it whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, there is a fight. There is this disagreement, disputing that goes on with men who are very competitive. Another thing I noticed was that competitive men who are older and are going through, once again, their share of midlife, where the body's breaking down, the mind isn't where it used to be, or what have you, they will try very hard to be like the younger guys. So as I mentioned earlier, they will dress like the younger guys. And that shirt looks good on the 20-something-year-old, for instance, but it doesn't look so good on the 40-something-year-old whose stomach is growing. You've got the trendy stuff that comes along, and then the older man wants to do what the younger man does, whether it's the tattoo, whether it is arching or shaping one's eyebrows, or doing something with one's body in terms of a physical exercise, to create some tone. I mean, they will do a lot of things just to attract younger women, because they see that the younger guys are able to do that. The younger guys are able to do that for a myriad of reasons. But once you get to be a certain age, you're not always able to do what you used to do. And when younger women pick up on the weaknesses, when younger women are not showing interest like they once did, this can frustrate some of these men in midlife. I've seen this play out, yes, in the church. You've got the minister who is supposed to be focused on the word of the Lord, but he sees that his younger assistants are getting attention from the younger, attractive women, and he's going to use his counsel or compliments, to get the attention of the younger women. There are those individuals who simply get tired of what's taking place. You've got the wife who sees that her husband in some sort of crisis is straying away, so she may try to dress younger herself, or she will try to do the types of things that she believes he's interested in, only to fail miserably, because once a man's mind is made up to stray, he's going to stray, no matter how much money you spend on him, what type of clothes you pick out, your new workout program, or what have you. You might get his interest for a little bit, enough to get a compliment, but he's still looking over there at whoever he wants to look at. He's still trying to compete with the younger men. He's still looking for something that's going to make him feel good. The selfish, let me throw that in, competitive midlife men are those individuals who are not about their families. I have once been single. I've been out there talking to different men, and it was clear that they could care less about their families. Okay. It is disheartening to see. Just because the man has been with his family for 20, 30 some years and he's worn out doesn't give him a license to go and start looking for younger women to whet his appetite. Some of these men, very disrespectful when it comes to talking about their wives. Meanwhile, the wife is, doing a number of things to keep the family stable, discrediting all of what she did. And now she's going through her change. And so it's, oh, well, you're not doing this, that, and the other. But what about the 15, 20, 30 some doggone years? Come on. Some of you wives that you put up with A, B, and C, and then the nerve of him to do these things. Now, I've got to turn this message into a spiritual message and say that God sees. Okay. God sees the competitive, insecure, selfish, arrogant man who chooses to go out and do all sorts of things that are ungodly, unrighteous, unfaithful, untrue. He hears his lies, his cover-ups, his denial, his blame. He hears all of those statements. And if you are that woman that sees that there's the shift in the atmosphere, you feel it, you've sat down, talked with your competitive midlife male that's in the family or elsewhere, and still he doesn't get it. You have to put him into God's hands. You stop focusing on him and you start focusing on your life and what you hope to accomplish. If you know that maybe your hormones are out of control, then mini skirt and going to the gym is not going to help. What you're going to have to do is get the mind right, and then the rest will follow. Okay. And part of that is sitting down with the doctor, sitting down with the counselor, having that supportive network around you. Because for many women, unfortunately, when this sort of thing rises up in their relationships, they start talking about separation and divorce because they simply can't put up with it much longer, right? The man is running around, in tight clothes, and he doesn't look good, or he is lying about who he's talking to on the phone, or he's being very flirtatious, as one man was at one of my jobs, where he was just outright disrespectful toward his wife with all of his little flattering statements. And I made a comment like, "Oh, so I guess you want to be in trouble with your wife, huh?" And I said something in a funny way to his wife. I'm like, "You know what? You need to spank him." And then she fell out laughing, so I took an awkward situation of all of his flattering and, made it humorous. But at the end of the day, though, there's nothing humorous about a hurting wife, a family who sees that the man is falling apart, because you are falling apart anytime you feel like you have to compete with people that are, decades younger. There is something going on hormonally. There's something going on spiritually. There's something going on all across the board, and including one's mind. Okay. So I had to take this moment to validate and acknowledge those women who are suffering right now, because there is this competitive spirit that has risen up, where sometimes it's not even about competing with the younger men. I'm finding that some of these men are competing with their wives in terms of employment. Oh, she got this job, she's making X amount of money, and I've got to either meet her or surpass her. Really? And this, once again, this is happening in midlife range, late 40s, going into 50s. I got to do this, I got to do that. Some men are experiencing this younger. Poor eating habits, stress, tragedies tend to bring a lot of this stuff on a lot faster hormonally. And so these men, they're not content with just their lives being the way they are. They're looking for something that will make them feel better. They will treat their marriages, their friendships, the workplace like it's a baseball field, like it's a football field, like it's a basketball field. I've got to win. I've got to win. This one is getting ahead of me. This one is getting more than me. This one, I don't know what the plan is, but, I got to make sure that I look better than everybody else. And as we very well know, the older you get, if you or if you don't have yourself under control, and if you are allowing the hormones to go haywire, you don't have a spiritual compass whatsoever. What goes up does come down. There are many older people that find themselves alone, okay? Because they have made everything in their lives about a competition. I got to be better. I've got to be wiser. I've got to win first place. I'm not settling for second place. And it's like, it's a relationship or it's a friendship. Why are you worried about being better than everyone else? Why can't you just sit comfortably in a quality connection with the person without feeling like you need to have the upper hand? But controlling, and let's throw that in there, controlling, selfish, competitive midlife men look at everything as a potential issue, problem, burden, or it's not even potential, it just is. And I want out, or I want to push it away, or I want it to run away or go away, rather than see the good. Okay. Some individuals simply need to start spending more time in God's word and less time looking at everybody and everything that innately you may know looks better than you, has more than you, rather than spend so much time on social networking sites looking at what everybody else has. How about looking at what God has in store for you? What is his purpose? What is his plan? So to those of you all who may be going through something like this, whether you are the one who is that person who feels like you need to make your connections a bit of a competition, and that's what you feed off of, that's what your motivation is, but then pride also creeps up. Or whether you're the person who you're witnessing all of this and you've tried repeatedly to talk to someone who simply doesn't want to listen, I want you to know that God definitely wants to hear from you. So you take the time out and you pray. And if you prayed yesterday, or if you prayed even 5 minutes before you listen to this message, pray some more. Turn all of this over to the one true God. Write down what you prayed too, so that you can go back and see what God has done. Because there's no reason why some of these women in these marriages have to suffer. None whatsoever. The man is showing through all of his ways that he wants to be free. That's what it boils down to. He wants to be free. He wants to be free out of the relationship, whether he's married or not. He wants to do his own thing. And once again, this is why many of these men end up alone. Because no one's going to want to keep playing a game that really should be a quality relationship or friendship, or even a healthy workplace environment. Nobody wants to play games, mental, physical, or spiritual games. They want peace. They want progress. And some people just simply want to do things that hinder progress and create war rather than peace. Well, may God be with each and every one of you. Please do check the description box for anything that might be of interest. You've been listening to YouTube NM Enterprise 7. Subscribe today. Also, if you would like to give, you are welcome to do just that. Please do check the description box for that as well. To God be the glory and blessings to you.